Okay, great. And we're recording. And so, Will, over to you.
Okay, let me share my screen first. Can everyone see that? Okay,
Looks great.
great, thank you. Um, Let me see if the presentation works, like if I make this full screen. Can people see that?
It looks great.
Okay, yeah, definitely say something if you can't see anything. So hi everyone, my name is Will Gutierrez. I again am one of the winter 2020 interns, along with Ruth from Outreachy with Public Lab. And this is a presentation on my project, which was to overhaul Public Lab's commenting system. A bit about me before we get started. I am a self-taught web developer, and my background is in React and the Mongo Express React Node stack. And this was basically the first time that I've made big contributions to a project of this size. So it was very exciting and huge learning opportunity. Oop. So again, my project was to overhaul the commenting system at Public Lab. And just to give everyone an idea of what the commenting system was like when I started the internship, I made these little videos. So here's a video of a bug that was very common when I started the internship. So here we are on a research note page, and this is where most of the content appears on the Public Lab website. It's kind of like a blog post. And let's say I want to scroll down and post a comment. And I upload an image, select the image, and where did the image go? I have no idea where the image is. It actually appeared here in this completely unrelated comment form. So pretty weird. Oh, it's playing again. Here's another similar bug, just to reiterate. So here I am back on another note page, and let's say I want to add some rich text. So I click on the bold, italic, header, and make a link. So all those changes actually appeared here again in this completely unrelated form. And we call these bugs cross-wiring bugs because it's like you make the action, but the action is actually wired to a completely different form. So in the first part of the internship, which was maybe the first month, I didn't really do anything but write system tests. If there are people in the audience that are looking to make contributions to open source communities, but they don't really know where to get started, I totally recommend that you write system tests. It's a good way to get like a sense of how the code works, and it's also lower pressure than fixing bugs. And the cool thing about system tests is you can kind of read through them, and it's very intuitive, like figuring out what a system test is doing, because it's basically interacting with a website in just the same way that a human would. So for example, this test is adding a comment manually, like we're visiting the note page. We're filling out this text area with name body with our comment text. We're finding the comment button, we're clicking, and then we're finding the comment on the page, and so on and so forth. Um, so after about a month of writing system tests, which was a really good way to get an introduction to the code base, I moved on to fixing bugs. So those cross-wiring bugs that I was talking about earlier in those videos, they were appearing for a bunch of different reasons, but probably the main one was that if you went to like any given page, ooh, excuse me, the all the HTML elements on the page, they are people saying something? Okay, people can see things. If you look at any like comment form, they actually don't have unique IDs. So this comment form at the bottom of the page, it has the ID of comment form here, if we look at it in DevTools. Now, if we take a look at the other comment form on that page, which is this reply comment form, and we inspect the same thing in DevTools, it turns out that this comment form, it actually has the same exact ID, comment form. two different elements and they have the same ID. And that's really bad from a web developer standpoint because the comment editor system, it needs a way to determine which comment form the actions should go to. And if the ID is the same, then it'll get confused. So after assigning unique IDs to everything, and that wasn't the only thing, but it was just like one of the things, and there was like a whole complex of kind of buggy behavior surrounding that. But that was part of it. After doing that, finally got the comment system to work as it should. Okay, so the image uploads to exactly where you expect it, and also rich text changes work, as well as the preview button, et cetera, et cetera. So after the bugs were fixed, which took another month, I kind of moved on to a phase of simplifying the code. I think public lab's been around for like maybe close to a decade, and the comment system was one of the oldest parts of the code base. Like when I looked in the blame view in GitHub, so there was an opportunity to just kind of streamline everything and make it a lot easier to read and a lot easier for future contributors to work on. So I just have some examples here of ways that the code was complicated before and ways that I made it simpler. So in this first example, it's showing how the comment editor is started on any given page. So this is saying that when the document is ready, E is like kind of the editor object. We initialize it. Well, what does initialize mean? So there's this code block here. I don't know about you, but like this is like a little hard to skim for me. Like I don't really like it's hard for me to understand exactly what this is doing, and this is a little discouraging for future contributors. So here's what I did with that is basically I made everything object oriented, um, which is kind of like this convention in programming, which makes things a little easier to understand and debug. So instead of like an editor object, we have this like class of editor, and then we can make new editor objects out of that. And here's the constructor. So every new editor object takes a default form, and every editor object is also associated with it has an attribute comment form ID. So every editor object is always pointing to a single comment form ID at any time. And it's pretty easy to figure out which one that is just by logging on the console. That was really difficult before, just how the code was written. Here's another example for uploading images. So this is a jQuery event handler, and it's talking about image, like dragging and dropping an image onto a drop zone. And so how the comment editor system used to figure out where the image upload would go is the user would drop onto a drop zone, and then what would happen is the comment editor would actually search through all the HTML elements on the page, and it would find the closest div that had the class of comment form wrapper. So this isn't the greatest way to do that because it's not very efficient in terms of resources and time. Like the comment editor has to search through all the elements on an HTML, all the HTML elements on a page, and there can be a lot of elements on the page, and so it's kind of wasted time. So instead, what I did was when the user drops an image onto a drop zone, I wrote this new method called setState, and now the editor, like this method, it takes a string which it corresponds to the different IDs of comment forms on a page. So main, reply, edit, and it works a lot better and reduces the chances of bugs appearing. Here's the last example. Is we used to have two different templates for two different kinds of comment forms. This form html.erb was associated with main and reply forms, and then we had a separate template for edit forms, edit.html.erb. So, like again, this also wasn't the greatest because if I made a change in form html.erb, I would have to do the same thing in edit.html.erb, and this essentially doubled my workload. Um, Especially because these two templates are very similar. Like an edit comment form is pretty much the same thing as a main or reply comment form. It just has like different, like there's slightly different text and like slightly different buttons, but basically they could just be one template. So that's exactly what I did, is that I just squished them into one template. This template takes an edit parameter, so if that's true, then it kind of just switches the text, switches the button text, and um, it's just a lot simpler to maintain for future contributors, so that they don't have to make the same changes twice, like I was doing for a little bit. Yeah, so I think it's a lot easier to read, a lot easier to maintain. Again. So I'm actually currently in this phase right now. Since the code is a lot more simplified, it makes it a lot easier to try to experiment and rewrite the comment system using React, which is a programming framework, um, and it's a lot of fun. React, I was mentioning before, was like the first web developing framework that I started learning a few years ago. And I might be kind of biased, but in my opinion, React it's more modular, it's easier to understand and maintain than what we have going on. I don't know this for sure, but I think that I think that the React comment system has a performance boost just because in the old system, which was written in Rails, like if a user posts a comment, then the server has to send a whole template to the front end, and then the front end loads that template. But with React, all it's doing is it's just sending like a little tiny bit of JSON, like it's sending like a little JavaScript object with just the comment text, and then the front end builds the comment form out of that. And that's a lot faster and more efficient. And then I think the other advantage of writing something in React is that I know that there's a lot of new contributors out there that start out with React experience. And so this will open the doors for them to make contributions and improve the commenting system without having to learn another framework, which is Rails. So I guess, so yeah, I've really enjoyed the Outreachy internship. I've learned a lot. Um, I guess I guess the good thing about working on this React rewrite is that at the start of the internship, I never thought that like I had doubts in my mind that I would get to this point, just because I started it and like it was in a like I had to learn Rails from scratch basically, and the code in the commenting system was like so buggy that like I was a little intimidated, like I wasn't sure how long it would take me to fix things. So it's really gratifying to get to this point now where I can kind of take risks and I can like kind of write my whole own new thing and kind of dream about it like making an improvement in the code base for the future for everyone. And yeah, it's really cool. And looking back on the whole experience, it all really started from a very basic place, like just writing system tests and slowly getting them accustomed to the code base. And yeah, it's great. So I guess the moral of the story would be that persistence really does pay off, I think. You can start small, and with patience and time, you can do pretty much anything. Thanks for listening to this presentation. I am going to copy and paste some of these links. I have my GitHub internship summary, which is like a GitHub issue. And I also have a separate issue for the React rewrite and my LinkedIn, GitHub, and Outreachy internship blog links. Thanks again.
Hey, thanks, Will. Let's have a little round of applause for Will's great work on this. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for making this contribution to Public Lab. I mean, this was a core feature needed for content creation, and thank you for so well illustrating the bugs to us and then going after them. Yeah, really appreciate it. Does anyone have any questions for Will? That was a beautifully complete presentation. So Let's see. Oh, and someone's going to join our call now, just in time to hear Ruth. And oh, Mohammed joined
I
and then
definitely have
dropped.
questions. Are we going to do 2 rounds? Or are we going to do some questions all together at the end? Because I have a. Do we want to get through both presentations first, or?
I wanted to just hear if there's anything specifically for Will, just while it's fresh. Any reactions? Ooh, thanks to these links. Yeah, that was a great presentation. Thank you so
For
much,
sure.
Will.
So if no one else has one, I definitely have a few. I really appreciated this. I loved the presentation. I guess I had a couple questions which I might ask to both of you at the end that are more general, but this one in particular, there's such a process of coming into a pretty messy, old kind of kind of dusty attic feeling part of the code, where you're like, at the beginning you look around and you're like, what are we going to do with this? Like, where do we even begin? You know, but as you said, you spent so much time working in tests, and I just that's not always something that takes such a central place in a project, and especially in a project where you are already getting oriented, like learning Rails and things like this. So I really applaud that, and I think that all the time spent there, although it may not have been the easiest portion of the project, it laid like a really solid foundation for the rest of the work. And both through the bug fixing, where you've kind of like in the tests identified a bunch of, you could call them kind of red lights that you've identified in the code, and then as you fix the bugs, those lights would sort of turn green, conceptually speaking, and sometimes literally with the actual individual tests as you resolve them. And then to be able to cycle back even one more time and begin dramatically rewriting this entire section of code. It's kind of like tearing the top of the house off and being like, no, we're actually going to make a new roof. But because you had that really thorough testing section at the beginning, you have a lot of safeguards. And so I won't extend the metaphor into like whether you're wearing safety equipment during the renovation, but you can imagine, that. And so I appreciate the patience and kind of like rigor that went into that sequencing of the work. Yeah. And I guess my question would, and with regard to the React part, I really felt that many people a year ago submitted proposals wanting to do React projects. And we felt that it was a pretty significant architectural change that we didn't know how to approach in an organized way. And so this being the final phase of your project, no pressure, but you're doing a great job, and I can see it already working, so you don't have to feel that pressure. But we really, I think we'll be able to point to that pull request and to say, hey, look, these were all the structural pieces that had to come into play to convert just the commenting section to React. Now, if we wanted to convert some other part of the website to React as a future project in a summer of code context or Outreachy context, this is a great model. You can sort of see all the different pieces, how they all tie together in an almost narrative way. And I think that's a really powerful contribution. So thank you. All right, well, I actually have real questions, but I'll leave them for the later section. So those are my reflections. Thank you.
Okay, great, thanks. So we've had someone new join us, and sorry to kind of put you on the spot, but Mohammed Warid, I'd love to invite you to share introductions. I put some prompts in the chat. Are you able to unmute and say hello?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. Myself, Mohammed Warid. How is the video not? Okay. Hello. So I'm pursuing environmental engineering, and I figured out public lab was a great org to contribute, and might as well apply the technology that I, along with environmental skills, to achieve something. Thanks.
Great. Thanks so much for joining us and for introductions. So now we're going to turn to Ruth's presentation. And Ruth, I am going to make you a co-host so that you can screen share. And are you going to screen share, or is there?
Yeah.
Great. Well, take it away.
Okay, thanks. So, can you see my screen?
Looks
Okay.
great.
So, like Will, I'll be talking about my work with Public Lab through Outreachy, and I added a few notes for anyone who's interested in applying to Outreachy, and also if you've applied to Sum of Code, it might apply to you as well. So I'll just introduce myself. I'll talk about the Outreachy contributions and what I worked on with Public Lab, the developments and fun stuff that was there along the way, and I'll show you the final product for now. So Ruth Ganjo, I live in Nairobi, Kenya. It's this small country at the eastern coast of Africa. And I have a software development background, and I was an Outreachy intern with Will during the winter contributions. And I'm also part of the Public Lab coordinators. So I just added some little fun facts about me. I like veggies, but not sprouts. Okay, so Outreachy contributions. So this is choosing what led me to choose Public Lab. So first, I identified projects with my skill sets. At the time, I was good at Ruby and on Rails and JavaScript. But if you're like Will, who had no background in Rails, I don't think, if you're interested in a project, I don't think a lack of skills in that project should stop you from just going in, because we can see a really great example with Will. And then I narrowed the contributions to 2, the projects that I would choose. So Outreachy recommends choosing 2 so that you can have an impact. And I struggled with 1. And because the community was not very active, you find some projects have like maybe 1 maintainer, and it's not their full-time job. So they don't have the time to like review your pull request or merge it. And Outreachy needed 1 merged PR pull request so that you can apply to the project. So it was very difficult getting feedback. And like when the feedback was shared, it was difficult like clarifying the feedback, because it takes like an extra 2 days. So at that point, I decided to focus on Public Lab. So there are a lot of people contributing to Public Lab as well. So the competition in quotes was stiff, because Public Lab was very welcoming. It's easy to get started with in terms of identifying first-time contributions that you can do. And the maintainers and the reviewers and the community was very responsive. And so I decided to focus on Public Lab, and it was a gamble that worked out. And so for those of you who don't know what Public Lab does, so it's a platform where the members collaborate in terms of mostly research on environmental science, for example, water quality, air quality, etc. And so they share the research and findings. I just added like a screenshot. They have meetings as well, which is open to anyone. When you sign up to or log into Public Lab, you can be able to see different meetings that happen and attend one. So this was a meeting by the air monitoring team or contributors, and there was a story shared about the impact of like community collaborating in science, in terms of there was a factory in a certain community that was emitting really harsh gases, and it was affecting the community. And they all joined together to collect data and record it. And eventually they were able to pressure the legislatures to close down that factory. So that's the power of Public Lab in a nutshell. And this is the current dashboard. And this is what I was working on. When I joined Public Lab, it was because the dashboard is the first thing you see when you log in. So it's just basically improving it or making it more user-friendly. So with the Outreachy, so when I did the initial application, I was accepted, and then I was contributing to Public Lab. And the first thing I did was looking at the README, like understanding the contribution guidelines and setup, and then had my first merged initial contribution. So that's the first thing I did. So if you're interested in the contributions, there are tags called FTO or first timer issues. Therefore, anyone who joins the repository or who looks through the issues on the Public Lab repos, and then you can choose one just to get you started and acquainted with, like, I would recommend going through that before diving into something deeper, because as much as you might be an experienced developer, the code base is new. So you just need something to ease your way into, like, the contribution and familiarizing yourself with how the project works. And after the first initial contributions, I challenged myself to just stick around and pick other PRs, review other people's pull requests, and also picking a non-first timer issue. So the next step would be to leave the first timer issues to other first timers, and then you just challenge yourself to pick an issue that scares you. So that's what I did. And I just wrote down some tips in terms of just following the code of conduct. It might be intuitive for some, but it's good because sometimes different projects have different, like, nuances in their description of the code of conduct. So it wouldn't hurt. Maybe you think something is okay to say or to do, but turns out when you read the code of conduct, you're like, oh, this is wrong in this community. So it would be good just to skim it. And then don't be afraid to reach out, but also be patient, because the community is, like, I'm not sure if there's anyone full-time in the Public Lab contributors, but once anyone sees your request, they respond. And if they take a long time, you can just tag the different people that you see, or even just go to there's a Gita channel for the contributors, which is on the README as well. And yeah, challenge yourself. Like, don't pick another first timer issue. Pick another help needed issue, or join a discussion issue, or introduce yourself in Gita. Tell us what you do. Just put yourself out there. And if you don't want to pick another issue, you can review other people's code as well. So that's one way to stick around. And so with the final proposal, we had two projects: the updating the comment functionality, which is what Will was working on, and the dashboard implementation. I picked that one because it was straightforward and it looked interesting. I wasn't sure I wanted to look through different bugs. So I avoided the bugs section and left that to Will. And then I went through. So when creating the final proposal, one thing I did different was I went through, so with the Outreachy's website, they tell you the different projects that the company needs, like Public Lab. So I went through issues related to the dashboard implementation, and I was able to find different links that had wireframes that had set up the new dashboard. So that's what I used, because I don't have like a design background. And so that's what I used to just create small changes, not like an overhaul change of the dashboard, but different suggestions that I had in the final proposal. That's what I used to create. And then, yeah, so I was able to understand the purpose of the new dashboard and found other resources, yeah, like the wireframe. So just like Will, I've attached a link to my final proposal. I'll just share that. Yeah, so with the tips that I would give is first understand why the project is needed, or the project, I'll call it the project, because you want to stand out in your final proposal. You want to look through issues related to the project. So in a lot of cases, you'll find that there are a lot of issues raised in relation to the project. So you can use that to create your final proposal. Just show that you went the extra mile. And yeah, get your hands dirty, look at the issues, look at the different pull requests, the past ones and even recent ones. And ask questions. Don't be afraid to reach out, ask questions, and also, yeah, help others as well. I know different people are competing for the same internship position, but at the end of the day, you're collaborating. So whoever gets it, it's not that you are the top best, it's just different circumstances that led you to get it. So you might as well just help each other. Yeah, because you're all at the same kind of boat trying to get to the top. I'm pretty sure if Public Lab could get all the contributors to join as interns, they would. So even if you don't get chosen, I don't think it reflects a lot on who you are, just maybe lacking skills or different factors. So just help each other in terms of the contributions, and spend your time being deliberate on the proposal, look at things in a different way, suggest different things from the ones you've seen on the proposal, and also look at past proposals to get an idea of how to structure it and get some inspiration. So with the new dashboard implementation, so it was different from the current dashboard because the previous one contained all the activity in Public Lab was thrown onto the dashboard. So that was a lot of noise for a user because they can see all the comments from different posts. They can see all notes, research notes from all topics, like the new ones. And so the users can follow specific topics. For example, if you're interested in water quality or air quality, you can choose to follow either or none. So this was not very evident from the old dashboard. And then, so just an explanation. The dashboard is the first page a logged in user sees. So you have to be logged in to see it. And so for the new implementation, the shift was from the content, from all topics, to what the user wants to see. So for example, if you log into Twitter, you don't want to see all the posts by all the users of Twitter. You just want to see all the posts from the users you follow. So that's kind of what the new dashboard does. It shows you all the posts related to the topics you're interested in. And it also tells you that you can subscribe or unsubscribe to a topic. And so this shifts the power from the application to the user. The user can control what pops up on their dashboard. So this was the wireframe of what the new implementation should look like. And then with the project planning, I know Will mentioned that the first week he started with tests. So for me, with the first few weeks, it was about breaking down the tasks and not just jumping into coding. And then understanding, because even with the Outreachy contributions, I was not very familiar with how the code base is. I'm still not, to some extent. So there's a lot more to learn. That's what I'm trying to say. So after like the first few weeks of trying to understand how it works, ordering the tasks according to, so I ordered the tasks according to the easiest, just, I don't know, they call it the biting the frog or eating the frog, something. Like cross out the small tasks first, and then the intense tasks can like take a lot of time at the end. So that was my approach. And then there was an iteration of coding, my code being reviewed, and then being given feedback, collaborating. And so it was a loop in the implementation. And even with the tasks that had broken down from, so this was from the proposal, there was a lot more that came up during the implementation phase. So it was not fixed. There were tasks that had to be added, to be removed, and still there are some pending tasks right now. And so, yeah, so with the development journey, it was mostly, so I talked about the project and the tasks and confirmed or sought feedback on different tasks that I had. Even when I was afraid to ask a question, I told myself, or I learned the hard way, that it's not good to assume, just ask. And there was no pressure to begin coding. Yeah. So this is just a screenshot of the breakdown of the tasks. It's on GitHub. I'll share that as well. So I put two like highlights of some issues that I had with the dashboard development. I can say this one, which was bumping up dashboard topics according to the activity. So for example, if a topic had new notes or new comments or new wikis are just pages, like notes. So if they had new content, like ordering the topics that the user sees on the dashboard according to new content. And the way the code base was structured, this was like, it wasn't thought about from a while back when the code was being created. So there was a lot of back and forth about different implementations. And at this point, we even had to alter the database and the models just to create this. So that's one of the things that you'll face, whether it's like changing the underlying structures of the foundation of the code or sticking to it. So yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is, don't be forced to not shake things up in terms of how the foundation is structured in the code. Like, it's good to put it out there as a suggestion, and your issue might be closed even before because this was an issue that I thought would be past the Outreachy deadlines, but it was closed way before. Yeah, so another thing that came up was, because the old dashboard had all the posts in terms of the comments, notes, wikis, and every other thing. So we needed a new page to transfer all that content for users who like seeing everything. So there was also an all post page that I worked on, which was super straightforward because there was already one in the database and no one knew of it. So they were actually surprised. I remember Liz being surprised that there's a page that displays all posts. And yeah, I added in your coding of the public lab platform, you can think about how to create issues that welcome new members. And also when you're stuck, reach out, don't wait too long. Will and I always reached out and raised different issues we were facing. Yeah, and the fun stuff. Will's blog was very fun to read. There were some cool gems in his blog. So if you have time, you can read it. He wrote really, it's like when you're going through the weeks and you're lacking motivation or you're feeling like there's a dead end, Will's blog was like the happy place of finding cool quotes to guide you through the remaining of the project. So that was fun. I got to celebrate my birthday during the application period, and it was amazing. And yeah, checking off the tasks that I've completed. I always looked forward to this part on the repo. So yeah, and finally, so this is how the dashboard, the new dashboard looks. I'll just show you a difference between the two. It's not 100% complete, but it's almost there. And it was also amazing getting feedback from the public lab staff. And so Liz and Jeff shared that as well. So this is the old dashboard, and then this is the new one. So you can see in terms of the first thing that pops up. So for example, these are just different notes, research notes, but in the new one, it's like a whole topic with the first top three contents in the topic. So okay, if you're a user and you're scrolling through this, this is my dashboard page because I've logged in. I'm not sure I ever subscribed to the agriculture, soil waste, and land use topics. And you can see on this dashboard, there's no agriculture. It's only like different topics that I've subscribed to. So that's the essence of the new dashboard in a nutshell. Yeah, thank you. I guess that's it from me.
Oh, fantastic. Let's have a round of applause for Ruth's work on this. Yay. Great presentation. That was so fun, Ruth. I'm sure we'll be referring to this in the future as great orientation content to people joining the community. We are nearly at the top of the hour, so I want to welcome any questions specifically for Ruth on the new dashboard, and or kind of welcome us to move into general questions for both Ruth and Will. Just feel free to raise your hand and jump in.
Maybe I'm happy to break the ice with just some appreciation. I really like the deep background research and understanding of the context of the project that you put in the beginning. And also how, because you had already made your first code contribution and pull request merged, there wasn't so much pressure to break that ice, so to speak. You know, you had already done it. And so you felt more comfortable perhaps taking good time to do deep research in your first week or two. So that was really nice. And yeah, just also appreciating how you wove the support of other people very integrally into every step of your work. So you often were taking time out to not just structure your code and your project so that it might invite other people in a friendly way in the future, but also even go in and actively welcome people in and, you know, be friendly to them in the issues, and, you know, to create first timer only issues for people to get engaged. So I really appreciated that too.
Great. Let's see. We are just at the top of the hour and we've already had one of our guests have to leave. So without taking too much time, I would love to invite you, Jeff, if you do have a question for both of our graduated fellows, to go ahead and start that now, and so that we can finish up no more than 5 past the hour, if possible.
Yeah. Okay. Here's one. What was the moment where you felt that you were probably the leading expert on this particular section of code. By which I mean, like, maybe I or someone else made a comment that showed that we obviously didn't know what was going on, and you knew at least a little more than we did. And how did that feel? Maybe Will, you can go first, unless you can't think of something right away.
Yeah, I definitely do remember there being a moment of transition where I was like, Jeffrey, what is this, and how does it work? And then you would tell me, and then yeah, I do remember like maybe like a month and a half or 2 months in where I was like, Jeffrey, what is this? And then you were like, I don't know, it's like pretty old code that was written like 10 years ago. Yeah, I can't remember what specifically that was though, but yeah, it was something related to the comment system, obviously. I don't know, Ruth, do you have a specific answer?
Yeah, I guess I shared it earlier during the presentation, the all posts page. So I was supposed to create that whole page from scratch. And then when I was creating like the application route, I noticed it already existed, which is kind of crazy because if I used a different name, maybe I would have not discovered it. So when I shared this with Liz and Jeff, they're like, we've been having this route all along, like this page actually exists. So it was funny to see Liz ask me how I discovered that page, and it was like my first week at the public lab contribution. So that was interesting.
That's great. Yeah. I guess my other question might be like, what were some, so like bearing in mind how it felt to read and learn about the code as you went through the process, what were some ways that you worked that which you hope will make the next person's job easier and more welcoming? Like imagine the next round of fellowships coming across your code and whether that experience, how that experience would feel for them in contrast to how it felt for you. Hopefully it wasn't too bad for you, but
Okay, I can go first and then Will. So I guess for me, it was about writing comments. In the previous job I had, we never wrote comments. It was like the code explains itself. But then with public lab, like different collaborators, different thinking, and collaborators come and go. So someone might never, like 5 years from now, an intern might not find me, but they'll find my code. So leaving comments about what it does and the naming of the different variables I was using. I remember, Jeff, you nudged me to write more comments at some point in different pull requests and renaming different variables. So that's one thing I feel like I learned to do and did, and I still think about doing when I continue contributing, whether it's with public lab or in the future.
Yeah, I definitely second comments and the importance of those. There were many times that I was reading through the code and being like, oh, man, I really wish that there was this comment here that would have explained this, because I just spent like 2 hours reading it and trying to understand. You know, and it's not a knock against Jeffrey, because I think Jeffrey wrote most of the code that I was working on like 10 years ago. You know, like it's just a learning journey, I think, with coding. Yeah, like I think that. I think one of the lessons of working on this internship was just seeing how much part of being a professional programmer is just doing things in a clear, easy to understand way, and how that's like even more valuable than making a clever solution to a problem. Is like you have to do it in a way that other people can like read pretty easily and like understand quickly, because it's just kind of a journey of frustration for everyone if you don't. So yeah, I think, you know, like nobody's perfect and my contributions aren't perfect, but I feel like I did my best to like make things more easy to understand. Like I had a few examples of that in my presentation of like making 2 templates into one, and yeah, just leaving as many comments as I could. It's a good question.
Well, I look forward to maybe discovering or by word of mouth, discovering some wonderful comments that both of you have left in our code. I think past fellows have done some really like friendly and in some cases punny additions to our code base. I remember Sasha Boginski left some geography puns in there. I think Alex Alves mashed up some public lab logo with the Brazilian flag and it's in there. I don't know where, I've just heard rumor. Anyways, would love that you can meet future friends through new folks discovering little bits of your style in the code. And yeah, I just want to thank everyone so much. Pokemon references in through the chat. Okay. That's great. Will, Ruth, yeah, I hope to see some of your style in there. And I just hope that you know how much great appreciation from the broader public lab community. There's many people who work on their environmental research projects by using the website, and still even more who just simply read others' content that the website holds and keeps on the internet. And they may never really realize who it was that actually wrote the platform enabling all this. So let me just, you know, extend to you it's my honor, yeah, to extend to you this great appreciation from really quite a large user community for your work in this fellowship. And yeah, just want to thank you so much.
Yeah, I definitely echo that. I think, you know, one thing that's nice to bear in mind is, you know, Will, you're mentioning some very old code that was hard to read. And one thing that you can understand when you dig deep enough in this project, in this community, is that it itself has changed quite a bit over time. And you can sort of see that the styles of coding, the approach to the work itself is structurally different and incorporates new ideas as it grows. And, you know, if you go back far enough in the history, you see code that was written quite differently and not as well, not just in terms of how clean it is, but in how welcoming it is. So I think that that's a reflection of how we see the code as a place more than as a tool today, a place where you need to tidy up, but also a place where you need to kind of put out a welcome mat and some little touches here and there that are personal, that help people make people feel welcome and feel that they belong. So I think that that's a really positive one. And I appreciate all of the different things, especially that you two have done to carefully craft the public lab, the code community as a space, the code base as a space for people. And finally, to our mentors who helped to make this happen as well. Sess and many others as well. Barun, I know you've been helping out as well. And I just, so to extend that even past the formal mentors for our program, we have a lot of people who just show up in our community. They're kind, they're helpful, they're supportive. And sometimes it's only 1 hour every year that they can do that, but we appreciate every kind of depth of engagement we can get from people. So thank you.
Great. Any last things you want to share, Will and Ruth, before I invite everyone to turn on their videos if they wish, and to do a screenshot of our little group here, our little class picture?
Maybe just thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the appreciation. Feels good.
Okay, great. Then for those watching this recording in the future, this has been a presentation of the Outreachy Winter 2020 through 2021 fellows, and find more at code.publiclab.org. Thanks.